Hey, it's Mr. Broderick again. We're going to go over goal 2.05, aerobic versus anaerobic respiration. This is part of goal 2.05, and it's one of the hardest things that we've been having trouble on in class. So we're just going to do a little quick review here. If you think back to the cell, we had an animal cell, which does not have a cell wall in it. We've got the nucleus in the middle of it. Outside the nucleus, we've got the endoplasmic reticulum dotted with its ribosomes. Ribosomes throughout the cell as well, represented by little dots because they're quite small compared to the rest of the cell. The Golgi sacs are on the outside here. We've got a couple other organelles. The one that I want to concentrate on looks like a little bean with a folded membrane, and we call that the mitochondria. Okay, the mitochondria is important for one reason, one major reason, is the mitochondria makes ATP. And I say that loosely because remember, you don't make energy, you convert it. ATP is the energy molecule that glucose is converted into. Right? Mitochondria is in both plant and animal cells, and if I real quick just draw a representation of a plant cell with its cell wall and cell membrane, so cell membrane on the inside there. It also has a nucleus, it also has endoplasmic reticulum, it also has the Golgi, it also has ribosomes. Right? One thing it doesn't has that's a little different is this big large vacuole, but it also has ribosomes. So there it is right there. Mitochondria, sorry, that's the mitochondria. It also has a mitochondria, in addition to the chloroplast, which does photosynthesis. But right now we're looking at the mitochondria. Plant and animal cells both have it, and it makes ATP. Right? It makes ATP in a process called aerobic respiration. Okay, so that's where we're here, aerobic respiration. So let me throw up a new page here. In the mitochondria, so in the mitochondria, aerobic respiration takes place. Here's aerobic respiration. And respiration kind of sounds like breathing. It's not really breathing. Respiration, when we think of it as breathing in and breathing out air. Aerobic respiration happens in the mitochondria itself, on the membrane. You think of the membrane as this folded inner layer of the mitochondria, right there. That is where glucose and oxygen are taken in, and ATP, CO2, and H2O are made. Right, so if we want to write an equation for that, I'll do it in red over here on the left. That would be glucose plus oxygen is made into CO2 plus H2O plus ATP. And being more specific, 38 ATP, which is a good amount of ATP per glucose molecule. So for every one glucose, there are 38 ATP made in aerobic respiration. Okay? The goal here is to produce ATP to use in the cell, right? To do different processes. The cell needs energy. ATP is the usable energy in the cell. So glucose plus oxygen makes CO2, H2O, and ATP. Let's compare or contrast that actually with anaerobic respiration. Anaerobic respiration. It's a little different than the aerobic respiration we just looked at. It does not use oxygen. No oxygen. Okay? And a trick for that is the prefix "an" means no or not. So anaerobic means without oxygen. Aerobic means oxygen. "An" means not. Anaerobic respiration comes in two flavors, if you will. One is alcoholic fermentation. And this is most familiar to everyone in the process of making beer. Alcoholic fermentation is used making beer. It involves glucose being made into 2 ATP plus CO2 plus alcohol, which ethanol is the alcohol made here. This happens in yeast. I'll put a yeast there. Most notably, and that's what's used to make beer. Ethanol is the alcohol byproduct. What we're concentrating on are the 2 ATP made, much less than the 38 ATP made from aerobic respiration. So alcoholic fermentation is one. Number 2 is lactic acid fermentation. And lactic acid fermentation also involves glucose being made into 2 ATP. Again, much less than aerobic. Plus CO2, again the same gas as aerobic respiration, plus lactic acid, you guessed it from the name, lactic acid fermentation. This happens in our human muscle cells is partially responsible for the burn you feel while playing sports. So again, to highlight, alcoholic fermentation and lactic acid fermentation are the two types of anaerobic respiration. Anaerobic means no oxygen, and it produces much less ATP. So if we were to look at a real quick chart of these two together, we'd have aerobic over here on the right, anaerobic on the left. Okay, aerobic is with oxygen, anaerobic is without oxygen. Aerobic is 38 ATP, anaerobic is 2 ATP. And aerobic also makes H2O, plus H2O. This has plus lactic acid or ethanol, depending on the type. So lactic acid fermentation or alcoholic fermentation. And that's a wrap.